Welcome back to the Behind the Well show. Roger Abel back in the studio with Elias Randall. Elias, what's happening today?
Another day, new day in 2025, and it's going great.
Are we going to try to make people laugh on the show today?
Why not? Tell me a joke.
Well,
knock,
I did
knock.
before the show. Oh, geez. My kids are telling knock jokes. They're coming home like acting like their hand's a toilet and open the lid. I don't know. They're learning all kinds of stuff at school. You learn, what, third and kindergarten? So I can only imagine what third graders and kindergartners. The jokes get better?
Oh, yeah.
No, come on.
Yep, it gets better.
All right, I can't wait. Can't wait. Today's show, here's what we're going to talk about. 5 things financial advisors wish all investors knew.
5 things,
5.
huh?
I bet there's more than 5. And I don't think this is just advisors want people to know this, but everybody should know this. And I think the first one, I don't know anybody. I shouldn't say anybody. I know very few people who say they started saving at the right age.
No,
and the first one, the first one we're going to talk about is saving early can truly be a game changer. And I wish I would have started saving earlier. I'm going to guess you're going to tell me you wish you would have started saving earlier.
More,
right? I mean, okay.
I've always done it, but could have definitely always done a little bit more.
I think one thing people get trapped in, especially, I started doing this right out of college. So there was no salary. It was just, earning my living. And that was not wonderful for a long time. But those years, I always found a reason for probably the first, 2 to 4 years of my career as to why I didn't have enough money to save. Right? Like found a reason.
Extra.
And that happens to a lot of people. Well, paying off student loans, or I had to buy a car. We bought a house. Well, 50 or 100 extra a week. You could have probably done that. It wasn't
I would
like
say
I wasn't
anyone
going out
can
to
save
eat.
$50 a week.
Right. So it can be a game changer for people. I was watching yesterday a Warren Buffett video talking about saving money. And I don't remember the year he started saving. I want to say it was 1941. He invested $114.25 into a stock. Okay. And he said, if I would have just bought the S&P 500 and put $114.25 into it over my lifetime. Okay. So I think it was 1941. He asked the host, what would this have grown to through all the ups and downs and the headlights and everything, assuming I just bought $114.25, set it aside, didn't do anything. What did it turn into?
Reinvesting all dividends.
Reinvesting all dividends. What do you think it is? $114 over Warren Buffett's lifetime.
It's going to be way higher than what I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But $1 million?
No, it's not that. 400,000.
Okay, I was actually going to guess 500, but then I was like, gosh, go big. Go big on this guess.
Yeah, but it shows
500 or 400.
400,000, $114. So you start to think about that. And I think when you talk to people about the impact of having the dollars compound over 70 or 80 years, it's really, really massive. But just imagine, so your child's born, you throw $250 in a account for them, you buy the S&P 500 and say, hey, don't touch this till you retire. What's it turn into? It's probably not 400, but it's something significant.
Pretty nice account.
We've talked about a lot of times. I think if you put away $5,000 in the S&P 500 for 40 years, it turns into $1 million. Ish.
Yeah.
So, saving money early is probably the number one thing people should know that don't think about it. Go ahead.
That? Well, you just have a lot more time. So your time horizon's very long. So less is going to go further over long periods of time. Like, even though I think I probably could have saved more when I was young, but the contributions I did do right away, those contributions, that money's going to grow way more than all the other money I ever put in. It's going to be invested a lot longer.
Yeah, it's time in the market. And it's interesting. When people think of leaving money to their family, they always think about leaving these grand amounts when they pass away. If you really want to set your kids and your grandkids up, put the money in an account for them today. So if you're, I mentioned this to my wife because she'd like to leave the kids an inheritance. Great. Let's get them working, earning enough that we can contribute to a custodial Roth IRA for them. And let's do that for 10 years. And then they're going to have a huge pile of money and we can enjoy our money when we're in retirement versus, trying to hold back so we leave them something. Just create it now, let it grow. And it's kind of a reverse way to think about leaving an inheritance, but it's actually a way more impactful way to do it.
I agree with that. And I bring that up a lot of times during the legacy planning or inheritance conversations. Like the other day, I did recommend to a family, because they want to implement some Roth conversion strategies really as a legacy planning tool, because they'd rather leave the money tax-free that they do decide to leave. Then we also discussed, because both their kids are just getting out of college, right? We also discussed, what about helping them fund a Roth IRA, maximum funding Roth IRA? And then when you start to think about, okay, the Roth they inherit from you, well, they get to keep it for 10 years after that time. If you help them start one, well, that account's going to last their entire life. If there's any money left then they can pass it on too. So I think a lot of times it can fit into what people want to accomplish. They don't necessarily consider that, though.
I think that's a really good point you made, because pre-Secure Act 2.0, so just a couple of years ago, if you inherited a Roth IRA, you got to keep it in perpetuity.
What before Secure Act 2.0 was it on an RMD schedule though?
You had to take an RMD, but you kept it in perpetuity, meaning you didn't have to liquidate it over 10 years.
There's no end date.
No end date. Now it has to be liquidated. So it's way more powerful to start some of this and let the money grow for a long period of time. Now, there is always, my wife threw this back at me. Well, what if they cash it out? And you know what I threw at her? Warren Buffett gave each of his kids X amount of shares of stock, however many years ago. Said, this is your inheritance. One of them sold it all. Well, okay. That's their problem.
Right, because that you really can't control.
That's the problem. You can't control it. But at the same time, if you set your kids up for failure or for success, if you set your kids up for success and you teach them about money and how it works and compounds, hopefully they see the value in it. We have a mutual client that we work with. And I saw him not too long ago, and he actually mentioned this to me. He has his kids working. They have custodial Roth IRAs. They've been doing it for about 4 years. And they've been putting, I think, around $3,000 a year in it. And he told me this year, their oldest was the first time they really were excited about it, because it's in a growth fund. So the thing's done very well in 2024. And there was actually a significant gain. Maybe it went from 12 to 14,000, whatever the number was. But it was enough that their child was like, well, that was cool. Where before, on $3,000 and it goes up 10%, it's like, oh yeah, 300, didn't even move the first number.
Right.
But they told me that was really cool. And they're trying to involve their kids in that. And it's probably one of the greatest ways to get kids to understand the value of how this works.
Well, and for the specific kid you're talking about, probably also realizing that money was created without me doing anything, right? I put the money into the investment. Oh, wow, that's nice. I have $2,000 more this year than I did last year. And what did you actually do for it? You just kept a good investment. Minimal effort.
Kids are much more aware of money at its meaning. I'll give you an example. My wife took the girls to Dollar Tree the other day. Everything's like $1.25. So
Dollar Tree.
Well, yeah,
they can still sell stuff for $1.
It's like $1.25. Yeah. So Megan was looking to get them some toys to entertain them, like And there's a new one right across the street, like right up there by Linmar High School. There's a new Dollar Tree or dollar store. So Blake's in there, and Megan's loading the cart up because she knows it's $1.25. And Blake goes, Mom, you need to stop. You're going to spend all of our money. But she's had the awareness that if you buy all this, you could spend all the money. And my wife's like, I think we'll be okay here. But she was equating number of items to more money. And she's only 8. But it just goes to show young kids can be imprinted on and teach them the value of money and saving early on. So I think the number one thing that most advisors wish all investors knew is saving money really is the game changer.
It is. And even though, right, money kind of makes the world go around, but the second thing, retirement, being financially successful and all that, it's not just all about the money. I think we talk a lot with our clients about having purpose, right? Whether we're trying to help you build wealth and get rich for the first time, or you've already done everything and now you're retiring. I think the most successful people, it's not just about, okay, I have a lot of money just to have it. Like they have goals for what they want to do. They have hobbies that they like to do. They have things they want to be able to provide for themselves, and specifically toward retired families. I think every study, every article, all the research we've ever looked at, folks that continue to have purpose in their life and they pursue things, and whether it's hobbies, volunteering, it just gives their life more meaning. And a lot of people find that the money is just a tool to provide all those other things. And I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah, 100%. Money's not the most important thing in retirement. It's the conduit to live your lifestyle. That's it. People view a pile of money as the most important thing about retiring because it is the engine that keeps it moving. But the most important,
but I know plenty of people who, like every family we work with, they have a different net worth or investable net worth, right? But everyone that has the lifestyle they want to have and they're doing all the things they want to do, their happiness is all, to me, equal.
100%. And here's the people that are most happy, though. Think of my clients who are most happy in retirement are the ones that actually went into it and put a level of thought, effort, and vision as to what they're going to do.
I agree with that.
They didn't just slide into it and say, well, I'm going to retire. No, some people slide in and they're just happy they don't have to show up at the job every day at 8 o'clock.
That sounds pretty good,
but
too.
The ones who are most satisfied, they've figured out how to have some purpose and meaning beyond just how much money they have. And you're right. There's lots of people we have that they're basically living on their Social Security. They could live on more, but they're living the life they want on the Social Security. I literally, before this meeting, had a client call me up. Do I need to take more money out? I said, you will next year. I said, your RMD is scheduled for January 1st or January 25th, 2025. Okay. How much? I told her. She goes, do I have to take more? I'm like, no. She goes, what about taxes? I said, well, if you take more, you'll pay more in tax. Okay, well, forget that. Because she's down in Florida right now and told me how wonderful it was. And I said, well, it's 86 degrees here too in my office.
Yeah. 86, yeah.
The third thing I think that really helps people realize it's not all about the money is that when we create a financial plan for somebody, we can test it and reveal really important things about it. And I have a client, and I've worked with him for a long time, and I'll never forget this. And I think this probably revealed them. I think in the beginning it was seen as a negative, but because they knew it, it's become a positive for them. But she inherited a house from her dad, different state. And most people see that as a positive, right? Like, you have a house. Well, they wanted to know if they could afford to keep that house.
Oh, okay.
So I was able to model it. And, we figured out they knew what the taxes were. They knew what the maintenance costs were, all that stuff. Because They have a pension, they have a state pension, some Social Security. We modeled it. And when I modeled keeping the house versus taking the proceeds and investing it, it was pretty drastic. I mean, it was like, wouldn't really work for them to keep that house and pay the taxes and all the other stuff.
So they couldn't afford to keep the house.
Not and do what they wanted to do. Where if they sold the house, took the proceeds, invested it, they were able to have a really high probability that they'd accomplish everything they want in retirement.
How did that go?
It actually went really good. They were grateful because what we did is we helped them avoid making a potential mistake. Right? The mistake is we see this as a blessing, but it turns into a curse. That, oh my gosh, we're going to run out of our money and then we're going to sell it anyway. And typically when you're forced to sell something, it's not at maximum profit. It's a fire sale.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I thought about when I was preparing for this is, what are the occasions where we helped reveal to people what was important that they wouldn't have known had they done a financial plan? I mean, I'm sure you can think of instances or individuals we worked with that the same thing has actually happened.
Well, it gives people a lot of confidence when they know kind of the outcome of decisions. And sometimes that's the best thing we can do for people is really just model scenarios, help them make good decisions today that are in line with their bigger vision for their life. We're bringing on a new family that the first time I met them, there was a lot of, we got stuff places. We're just not really sure. We want to make sure we're going the right direction. We're on track. So after the first meeting, I kind of thought, they probably either one, based on that conversation, they're not on track, right? They haven't saved enough. Because I don't ask people how much money they have the first time they meet them, right? It's not that relevant. Well, or they're going to be one of those families that they need to organize this picture and figure out a way to be on track for the goals that they actually have, some fine tuning. Well, turns out they've done a really good job of saving. They actually had never even put together like a net worth statement, so they had no idea how much they actually had, but for their age, their contribution rates and all that, they're on track for their goals. And really all I did was show it to them. And now they're very confident going forward in what they're going to do and how they're going to get to the end goal, which is these two, they want to potentially not work at like 55 or 60, somewhere in there. And it was, it's nice to see when you can make decisions, right? Because they're also trying to decide, well, what do we do in the short term? They want to help a couple kids with college. They got a little bit of debt left on the house, right? So now they can start to check these other things off the box and continue to save what they need to hit their goals.
Well, I think it's important to recognize that it doesn't have to be close to retirement.
Yeah, they're 46.
Yeah, I mean, even 30. How many times have you run into a situation, and we run into it frequently, where you have this dynamic in a house where one individual in the relationship is the mega saver. They have a couple of kids. The other one is like, hey, could we have a little bit more lifestyle, right? We need a new house. I have
pretty common, especially with the young people that we meet with, because most of the young people that come see us, they're more responsible with their money anyway. And sometimes too responsible with their money.
Yeah, but here's what happens when they test this. Great. One person in the family's like, we need to save every single possible penny we have. And the other person's like, we have 3 kids and we live in a 1,400 square foot house and we're bursting. We need a new house. How do you show the super saver that they're doing enough? And it's testing the plan. Had this exact scenario, brought the family in. I mean, they are kicking butt. They're debt free. They don't owe a dime on their home. They're like 36 years old, but they're bursting at the seams.
House is too small, you mean?
Yeah, there's not room. They have like 4 kids and they have like 3 bedrooms and they're just bursting at the seams.
Right.
But they're really focused on stashing away. I mean, they're like 36. They got $1 million. They're like stashed away as fast as possible. And they don't have super high paying jobs. They're just very responsible with their money. Well, we were able to demonstrate that if this is your retirement goal, of X amount per month, or you want X amount per month coming in retirement, inflation adjusted. This is your balance today. This is your savings rate. You're going to accomplish this. Here's the gap, what you could spend. You have $4,000 left over, let's say, after your savings rate. This is what you could spend on a new house or whatever you need to buy. And what it does is it takes the super saver and completely relaxes them about their situation. Because most people are under the assumption that saving more is better than not enough, which that's true. But if you don't know what your savings rate needs to be to accomplish your goals, then you're just going to save more and more and more. And truth be told, no one's ever said they wish they would have had less, but you can oversave.
Well, you can also miss out on your life too by saving.
There you go.
By saving too much, right? Like you're foregoing short-term and medium-term goals or lifestyle just to have a little bit more money, right? Like the extra savings, especially for people working for a living, isn't going to move the needle as far as like, okay, we went from being like wealthy to our family's always going to be independently wealthy, right? Those are two different levels. So you might have maybe another million or two, but does that take you to a whole nother status of wealth? Not really.
Well, that's what the plan allows you to do, is figure out what you hit it on the head. What's the short-term, medium-term, long-term goals, and make sure we fulfill our life and live all those things as we go. Because here's what happens, Elias. And I see this every single day. People think they need this giant pot of money. They didn't really figure out what life's going to look like in retirement and what age do they hit, and Uncle Sam comes knocking.
73.
Well, or it'll be 75 if you're born if you turn 73 after 2032. But 73, let's just say. You got RMDs. So the fourth thing people should think about way ahead of time, what are you going to do about RMDs?
And I do think investors are getting a lot better at this one specifically. I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the content out there around Roth conversions and all that. But I do think investors, one topic that they tend to understand more than others is the RMDs, or required minimum distributions, as they're called. And we get a lot of questions on, should we be doing something to get ahead of the taxes? Should we be taking money out so then we're not forced to take out as much in the future? But the reality for most retired people right now, their accounts are in pre-tax accounts, whether 401k or IRA. A lot of that has to do with Roth is only 25 years old, 30 maybe at most. Yeah.
No, 30. It's like 30-ish years old.
Yeah. Came out like 96, right? So anyway, 25, 30 years old. So it wasn't that popular. The limits were pretty low when it first started. So a lot of folks retiring today did not adopt it early enough to have a big tax-free account. So most of their money is in pre-tax accounts. They've never paid any income tax on any of the money. And depending on the value, you have to take out, in the first year, it's a weird percentage, but it's like 3.6 or 3.7% of your total you have to take out. So if you've done a really great job, well, what's that number going to be? Could be a couple $100,000.
I see this all the time. People retire at, let's say, 65, 62. They did really good. They had $2.5 million in their 401ks. It's a pretty common scenario, right? Like,
yeah,
a couple $1 million in your 401k. You did a good job saving, had a decent job, not a high paying job, but a good job. 62. And the way most individuals accumulate $2.5 million is they were probably frugal along the way. So their spending pattern probably isn't a lot. Like their life, they don't ask for a lot in lifestyle. And retire at 62. They got a pot of money in the bank, a couple $100,000 in the bank or whatever, because they've squirreled it away. And they have $2.5 million at 62. And most of the time, Many of those people never touch that $2.5 million until they hit RMD age. Well, that's 9 years. So if we take rule of 72, which is 72 divided by number of years to retire, gives you your interest rate. So 72 divided by 9 means if they average 8% a year, the money doubles. So now you went from 2.5 million, which they didn't see as a lot of money. No, it is, to 5 million. And what they did is they exponentially made their RMD problem worse. Not just because they have to take more money and pay more to Uncle Sam, but now they're going to have Irma come into the situation, right?
Yeah, their Medicare's
premium going
adjustments.
up.
Yeah.
You know, it could be $250 each per month increase. Their Part D just went up. All these different things happen because they didn't manage it early on. And what do most people's goal is to pay the least amount of income tax possible.
Correct.
But
True.
if you have no income, there are situations, if you have big IRAs, that you should be looking at converting X amount of dollars and paying some income tax, especially if you know you're going to have to take $200,000 or $250,000 out of an IRA in 10 years.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're
Either-
avoiding
yeah.
the bomb.
Right. Converting or taking out and spend it. Do something.
So there are ways that you can fix this problem, but you should be engaging with your financial professional to help come up with creative ways to manage it. And, you know, a lot of people, their goal is to pay the least amount of tax possible, which that's true, but you have to quantify what the least amount of tax is. The least amount of tax today or the least amount of tax over time, because it could become the most tax over time. So that's really the fourth thing that I think we see people, we wish people thought about significantly earlier. And it doesn't have to be when you retire. I'm thinking about it today. All the contributions I make to all of my accounts that I can are Roth.
And why is that?
Well, one, as you know, I'm planning for a date where I'm financially independent. I don't have to work, but I don't really ever have this intent or desire to completely call it quits, even though I know someday I'll have to. But I envision myself staying on for a long time, one. But two, even if I do call it quits, I'm going to have to sell the business to somebody, which means I'm going to have income for X amount of years in the future. And I don't want to ever be forced to take this money out into this ultra high tax bracket and add to my problem. So I won't have, nobody will be telling me when to take it out. That's one. The other thing is my wife likes California. I like California. Not saying I'd ever be a resident, but if for some reason that was an option, we wanted to do that. Now I've eliminated state income tax issues because all of my income is tax free. So there's multiple
You're
layers.
planning ahead. You are planning ahead.
Here's the other reason. Inherently, it's forcing me to save more.
Because you're not doing the tax deferral? Or why do you say, and making you save more? What do you mean?
See, this is the hidden secret of Roth that most people don't think about.
I want to know the hidden secret.
$23,000 contribution. Let's say you're just one person's 401k and $23,000 is the max, let's say. $23,000 in Roth and $23,000 in a pre-tax account is the same amount of money going in, right?
Yes.
Coming out, it's not the same amount of money because they're each going to grow to the same amount, right? So they each invested the same way.
Yep.
They each grow to $1 million. What's the value of the $1 million account? It's not $1 million. It's $1 million before tax.
Minus tax. Yeah.
You got it. So you're actually saving more money. You just don't know it.
That's good.
It's a trick.
I actually, yeah, you know what? And now that you bring that up, I think I've even seen people model that out where even saving, like the tax savings, I think over the long term, Roth can still beat that number because of that value, because of the tax consequences in the future.
Yeah. Now that said,
I'm sure some of that depends on.
Here's the difference. What did it cost me to get the 23,000 in there? 30, right? If I do 23,000 in Roth, I really paid, let's say, another 7,000 in tax. So it's really 30,000. That's why I'm saving more. Because it's after tax.
Taxes are paid though.
Taxes are paid, so they look the same on paper. but they're not. Really, I had to spend $30,000 to put 23 in a Roth versus just putting a pure 23. That's how you save more. Trick. I didn't make it up. I learned it from somebody else.
That's the secret sauce to the Roth right there.
It really is. And you know what? Goes to your kids. Kids are beneficiaries tax-free too.
It does. So our final one
great
here.
Wealth transfer.
Yep. Final one here. Financial planning isn't just for after you've built wealth. And I think that topic's a good segue, right? Because we talk all the time on how Roth really benefits young people the most because of the length of time they will be able to be invested. And number 5, I couldn't agree with more that, and we work with a lot of young folks in their 20s and 30s, and they are not wealthy today, but they have all the right habits and they're doing all the right things, and they take our recommendations, they do the things they're supposed to do. And I think I've said before to a lot of people, I don't know that you could find someone who started young with financial planning and just executing some really basic strategies and things over a long period of time, and they ended up unhappy with the result that they got. So I don't think people should feel like I don't have enough, I don't need a financial plan, I don't need to work with a professional. I mean, if you're not saving and investing for yourself, right? There's certain people out there that they're going to do it for themselves because that's what they like to do. But if you're not someone that wants to take that on, getting a financial plan and starting to build wealth, I mean, what can you do? $50 a week? Can you get started on something?
$25 a week, anything.
Right. Just get started with some habits and build upon those from there.
Well, and here's what it lends itself to. Truth be told, the financial plan should be this very dynamic, ever-changing part of your financial future, meaning
it's a process.
It should never stop. Hey, what happens? The market went up 30%. Do I still need to keep the same amount of risk, or do I decrease it? What do I do? Well, I had an inheritance. How does this affect things? We just had that the other day. I have an individual who said when Roger calls me and tells me I get to retire, that's when I'm going to retire. Well, I called him and said, hey, if you want to retire, you could. And he's 53, 54. He goes, well, I think I'll still stick it out till 60, but it's because he got an inheritance. It's not because he worked himself to it. He didn't anticipate getting this inheritance. One of his parents passed away. The last one of his parents passed away at a pretty young age. And he got this inheritance. He's like, oh, wow, I could retire, but I'm going to keep working. But he never would have known that had the financial plan not been part of this dynamic decision-making tool.
And everyone likes work more when they don't have to go.
I can't tell you how many people we've done a plan for that tell me they're going to retire at one age and they work 5 years longer.
Yeah,
because
and they all say it's not so bad once you don't have to be there.
The common line is he's like, well, when I get a walk in and I know that I'm always just 2 weeks away from calling it quits, it's a good feeling. I mean, give your boss the 2 weeks notice.
Yeah.
With that said, if anybody is looking to get a very dynamic, engaging financial plan built for themselves, you can go to premieriwm.com. You can call us at 800-383-6590. If you enjoy the content, you like what you're listening to, please do us a favor. Subscribe to our podcast, Facebook, YouTube, X. We're on all the major social media platforms. With that said, I hope some of you are still engaged in your financial resolution, as about a third of the people in America have already stopped. Do you have any closing comments, Elias?
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments and Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide tax advice. Please consult your tax professional. Economic forecasts set forth may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that strategies promoted will be successful. There's no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Rebalancing a portfolio may cause investors to incur tax liabilities and/or transaction costs and does not assure profit or protect against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to affect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of principal. Consult your tax professional about eligibility to Roth and traditional IRA contributions. Contributions and earnings in a Roth IRA can be withdrawn without paying taxes and penalties if the account owner is at least 59.5 and has held their Roth IRA for at least 5 years. Traditional IRA account owners have considerations to make before performing a Roth IRA conversion. These primarily include income tax consequences on the converted amount in the year of the conversion, withdrawal limitations from a Roth IRA, and income limitations for future contributions to a Roth IRA. In addition, if you are required to take a minimum distribution, RMD, in the year you convert, you must do so before converting to a Roth IRA. This information is not intended to be a substitute for specific individualized tax advice. We suggest that you discuss your specific tax issues with a qualified tax advisor